love isn't enough to make a marriage work or a committed romantic relationship work. It is not enough. It's the bare minimum. It's the ante to be in the game. I made a commitment, and if I'm ever going to give up on this thing, it ain't happening until we have done everything, and I mean fucking everything, to work through the issues and the challenges and find our way back to each other. I'm the one that has to deal with my shit.
Welcome to another episode of the True You podcast. My name is Bill Tierney. I'm a compassionate results coach. This is my co-host, Dr. Martin Kettlehut. Marty, he's an author and a coach as well, a leadership coach. And we're joined today again by Geoff Laughton, a relationship architect coach. He's a men's work facilitator, an author, and a speaker. You want to say hello, Geoff?
Hello. Thank you for having me. Great to be here again.
Yeah, absolutely. And I say again, and you say again, because you were on our leadership coaching podcast. I don't think you've yet been on the
That's
True You
true.
podcast.
We've changed the theme since then.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
you were
we
here.
got rid of our hair in the interim.
I don't know that we had any then either. And I think you previously were here with your business partner, Mark.
Yeah.
In the
Oh, that's right. Mm-hmm.
The Undaunted Man. Yeah.
In the Undaunted Man. That's right. Okay. So, well, let me just read a little bit for those that haven't met you yet, Geoff, or for those that have, and remind them of a few things about you. A men's leadership and relationship speaker focused on accountability, conscious partnership, and emotional maturity. With more than 30 years of experience working with men and couples, you help men become fully present partners, fathers, and leaders without shame, performative masculinity. You're the co-founder of the Undaunted Man, a decade-long men's organization rooted in brotherhood, integrity, and authentic personal evolution. You are the author of Building a Conflict-Proof Relationship and Built to Last. Welcome, Geoff.
Thank you.
And we spent a few minutes before we hit record today because, Geoff, you just came out of a pretty profound experience. You feel like sharing anything about that?
Sure. I was just with Mark, my business partner, was having a conversation with my spiritual teachers, and I use the word in the plural because I have a human teacher and I have literally a spiritual teacher that has been out of his body for a good 130 years. And we were talking
You might
about...
need to say a word about how it is that you could be talking to somebody who's been out of their body.
Yeah, my human teacher is a trance channel.
I see.
And has been channeling different spiritual energies now for about 35 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been one of her students for 30 now. And the energy that came through for Mark and I today, there's really been a spiritual source for the Undaunted Man, is the spirit of Chief Joseph, who was in his last embodiment the chief of the Nez Perce tribe in the late 19th century. Well, really, he died in 1901 or 1902, but his tribe was in Washington State and Oregon, and he is one of a few Native American chiefs of that time that addressed both houses of Congress. After the military, he, at great risk of life and loss of life for his tribe, when the U.S. Army was coming to try to run them off their reservation, they ran towards the Canadian border, and it was in the wintertime. And he lost nearly half the tribe, and the Army captured them literally hours away from the border. And so I have a huge, here's a man really known in history and on the record for giving one of the most inspiring speeches to Congress in that day. And we were talking today about division and war. And over all the years that I've been studying with him and other spiritual beings and human teachers, there's a recurring message and theme that I keep getting about the fact that there's a universal law that says, as within, so without. And there's another law, universal law of correspondence is what it's called, which is as above, so below.
Yeah.
And I was sharing with Bill and Marty before we hit the record button. I have a lot to process from it, but it brings up that the wars that we've gone through for most of human history, just a perspective. And as a relationship coach, I am always working with couples at war with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And that the war that goes out here is to varying degrees about the war that we have in here. Whether that's the war between our higher self and our ego, if that's the war between our parts that Bill talks and writes about all the time, our young childhood, adolescent parts. And so it really, what made me excited to come back and talk with you guys with this new podcast theme, The True You.
Mm-hmm.
In this reading, one of the practices that we were given to be able to have a bigger impact on the men that Mark and I serve, the couples that I serve, the women that I serve, is really about how we find peace. And then how can we bring peace to those around us? How do we bring peace to our family, our children, our grandchildren? It touches into a lot of worry I have for what my son and my grandson are facing when I'm long gone. So I don't think there's a more important thing to be thinking about or working with. And because the invitation to be with you guys today was around relationship, that has to include relationship with self, which drives a lot of how our romantic relationships go, our friendships, professional relationship. And part of the practice we were given was really to grieve the arrogance, grieve the loss of humanity. I mean, what's happening in all the relationships I work with and everything that we're witnessing around the world, it's not just in the US, but globally, it's all this, it all centers around forgetting that we are all connected, we are all one, and yet for all of history, somehow that all went away, and we don't think twice about treating our partner that we keep saying, I love you, and then we can treat them like they're our enemy. We can bomb school children and not bat an eye because of whatever reason. So this is really, I'm stirred up, and I'm grateful for the message. And I'm reminded, since we're talking about, romantic relationships here, that there's a fascinating paradox between the fact that love, the way I look at it and feel it, love is the only way out of this. And in romantic relationships, something I tell every couple I work with, and it's in the first chapter of my first book, love isn't enough to make a marriage work or a committed romantic relationship work. It is not enough. It's the bare minimum. It's the ante to be in the game. That's the metaphor that resonates a lot with me. All right, if we're gonna do this thing, if we're gonna enter into this, purported lifetime contract with each other because we love each other, then it's going to be a rocky road. In the best of marriages, it's a rocky road, roller coaster. And the love can be the glue that helps you get through the more, ego-oriented, psychological, mental stuff that we all grapple with. So I just find that paradox perplexing, fascinating, and probably a huge part of my life purpose, just to help bring clarity to that for myself, for couples, my clients, my friends. How do we navigate that paradox? So thank you for letting me have a little TEDx talk right in the first 10 minutes of the podcast.
That was wonderful.
Well, there's so much in what you said to talk about. I hear, on the one hand, that love is just the ante to be in the game, and so there are a lot of games that we're in that you mentioned outside of our already existing love relationships, or relationships with people that we love. That we haven't even paid the ante to get into the game yet. So that's one thing to talk about. How would it? What does it look like to bring love to, the larger world outside of those relationships we've already declared have to do with love? And then the other thing that is then, okay, now we're in the game, let's say with our spouse. What more do we need to bring to the game besides just the ante?
Which of those two would you like to start with?
Let's start with the internal one.
So I think it might be helpful for the audience to have a little bit of context about why I even do relationship coaching for a living. a lot of it has to do with having been fortunate to be in my relationship with my wife for 44 years.
Hmm.
And I often say we have the most perfectly imperfect relationship you could ever want.
Well, that says quite a bit right away, just the acknowledgement that it's not about being perfect. And you mentioned this in another way earlier, that relationships do have their ups and downs. They're not, if it's not going perfectly, welcome to the game.
Right. Well, yeah, exactly. And why that inspires me to do what I do is because, plenty of people can be together 45, 50, 60, 70 years.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing that I haven't been shy about telling people, my parents were together for 50 years and they hated each other for 49 of them. So it doesn't mean a fucking thing to me, the longevity, without there being the quality. And Sarah and I have been, I think we're probably on our 5th marriage right now
Interesting.
with each other.
Uh-huh.
If I look back over the 4.5 decades, there's 4 distinct periods that we've gone through, and the transitions between each one. To say they were rocky would be an understatement.
Hmm.
And yet we have kept persevering, and we've moved through things that, just from my practice, my professional practice, would and has killed many a marriage.
Wow.
And yet we're still here. We still love each other. We still like each other. We still sometimes get challenged to look each other in the eye for more than about 20 seconds because we both just start bawling. Because the love is so deep. So I'd love for more people to have that. So people ask me, to your question, okay, now you've anteed up. Now how do you play the game?
Yeah.
When I try and reconstruct, like, how we pulled this off, well, there's no question that ante has held solid this whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Another element of it, and maybe, another thing about us that's unusual is she's 11 years older than I am. And she was married and had a kid before we met. And so she grew up in the 50s and the 60s with parents who taught kind of the values of, like Christian values, and kindness meant something, and commitment was not to be taken lightly. And so I can't overstate the value of commitment. Now, I don't believe, by the way, that every marriage is meant to last a lifetime. I've been doing this too long to believe that. There are just some that are meant to last a certain amount of time, and both people get everything their souls and their minds needed, and then it's time to move on to the next best fit for wherever their spiritual and human involvement is going.
Mm-hmm.
But for those who are lucky enough, at the risk of being contradictory, to make it this long the way we have, the commitment to not giving up when it gets hard.
Mhm.
And for you out there, Marty and I have been friends for 20 years. He's seen some of these transitions we've gone through. And man, there were times, I can't speak for Sarah, but there were times where my mind and my parts were going, oh, this would be so much easier to get out of this. Let's just give up. And something in me just, no, I'm not going to give up. I made a commitment. And if I'm ever going to give up on this thing, it ain't happening until we have done everything, and I mean fucking everything, to work through the issues and the challenges and find our way back to each other.
So just to, I just want to pull a thread here. If you don't mind my jumping in.
No,
So
go ahead.
besides the ante of we love each other, and now I'm speaking to what's going on inside is what's going on outside, part of what you said. If I'm not committed to working through whatever it takes to maintain and grow that love, then I've just paid the ante. I'm not even playing the game.
Exactly. Yeah.
Do you mind if I jump in a little bit and share a couple of things that are going on in my mind as I listen, Geoff?
Please, it's your show, bro.
Well, if it was your show, I'd still be asking permission. It doesn't matter.
I know. And Bill and I are old friends too. So
yeah, 10, 11 years, I think. Yeah.
Yep.
So first of all, I'm thinking about my first marriage as you're talking about love as the ante. And now that Marty's brought up commitment. And so I'd like to just share a little bit on a personal note about what happened in that marriage.
Yeah.
And maybe it'll give a little bit even more context to what can happen. So I was 19. She was 15 when we met. On our first date, by the end of that first date, I felt as much love for her as I ever did. And that love for her continued for probably the first, I would say, 13 years of our relationship.
Would you like to elevate your leadership? Be sure to pick up my new book, Leadership as Relation, to explore leading by empowering others. Now back to the episode.
When we'd been together 15 years, she died of a brain tumor. But a couple of years before she died of that brain tumor, I fell out of love with her. And I lost my commitment. And so what it makes me wonder, and I've almost gotten all the way to the end of this road and drawn the conclusion that what I thought was love was not in fact love at all. That it was a need that I wanted her to meet in me, and I really believed that she could. And as long as I believed that and felt that, I was committed. But when, in the course of our ongoing negotiation of the relationship, it became clear that she not only was not capable, but not willing to try to meet that need, I lost love for her. And I lost the commitment to staying in the marriage. We did stay in the marriage eventually after some very rough and rocky roads. But my commitment was more for the desire not to hurt her, as well as the desire to not hurt my kids. So I think maybe theoretically, I'll just toss out here that what you're talking about as far as love maybe is confused as it was for me. Now let me just fast forward. After my first wife died, rather than grieving that, because I didn't know how, I just moved my attention to something that I could hang that unmet need on, which was more relationships.
Yeah.
Over the course of 2 years, and I ended up marrying the fifth woman that I got involved with after at about the 2-year mark. And I never did actually feel anything like that love for her. And because of the absence of that, as well as the commitment to treating each other with love and respect, we were committed to staying together, and managed to just let that commitment keep us together for 8.5 years before it just couldn't continue. I became desperately afraid that I was going to repeat more of just finding myself almost unconsciously and involuntarily falling into more relationships like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I became convinced that I needed to do my work so that that wouldn't happen. And I did. And when I met my current wife, I didn't feel for her what I felt for my first wife. I felt love for her, but it was much, much different than what I felt for my first wife.
Hmm.
It was a needless love that has only grown over the 13 years that it'll be 13 years married this summer.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm absolutely committed. She is too. We've had some rough times, but I just want to reinforce maybe what you're saying about love being the ante. But the question is, what is that? What does that even mean, to love someone, to need someone? And if we listen to the love songs,
Mm-hmm.
that's what we hear, is to love someone is to need someone.
Yeah.
From much of them, and that's not the case. Need is not love.
No.
Yeah.
No.
So that's some of what's on my mind. Let me just be quiet and here's some responses from you and Marty.
Well, I love that you bring that up, because I think, I've also really grown over time to see, a biological fact is, for most, if not all of us, when we quote unquote fall in love, it's exactly how you just described what you had with your first wife. We fall in love, and most people get into a relationship in a state of chemical intoxication,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
The
Well, in fact, that's what we all say we want. We want that chemistry.
Yeah.
right, right. But we don't realize that it literally is just biochemistry on one level.
Yeah.
And then that always wears off. The last thing I read about that general time period is within 1 to 3 years.
Yeah.
And so I think this also ties in nicely with commitment. And Marty used the word respect, and you used the word respect. That when that limerence, that's the name for that biochemical phenomenon, when that wears off, then you have to look, you suddenly realize who you're with.
Mm.
And I read this great article a week or two ago by a therapist named Constantine Petrascu. And the headline of the article was, "Most marriages are dead before they even start." Because, he writes, we tend to marry, literally or figuratively, the fantasy, which is what you were, your first wife, the needs that you hadn't had met growing up, in your family, and what I hadn't had, now Sarah was my third relationship. So there was still an element of, oh, this is the person that's going to meet these needs that I had yet to have met. So I think another thing that can really determine if there's life beyond limerence does require some struggle. Like you have to get to know who you've actually married, and you have to get to know you in a more sober way.
That, yeah, exactly. Can I jump in? I don't want to.
Yeah.
And I think this goes back to the bigger theme too. I take it that God's creation is perfect, so to speak. That it all works. There's enough resources for everybody. That there's a state of grace, and then we develop these internal ways of handling ourselves that get in the way on eventually to being in this Garden of Eden kind of situation, right? I think that's the whole Garden of Eden is a metaphor for what I'm talking about. I don't read the Bible literally. I read it as parables and stories that are meant to teach us something. And so the love is just that recognition that this, that this is good. If 101 politically, and that we've got what we need to make this work. That's what I take the love to be. And the commitment is the part that says, when my shit comes up, I'm gonna work on me so that we can get back to the Garden of Eden.
It doesn't mean I'm going to tolerate your shit no matter what.
No.
Well, I think that's what I used to think.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to put up with this crap no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, there's an inverse of that too, or maybe that's not the right language. There's another piece of this that you're saying, Marty, that when when the fantasy begins to drift away and you are having to deal with conflict and disagreement and different beliefs, etc., I think at least a lot of the people I've worked with over the years, whether they're consciously aware of it initially or not, a lot of people have the belief that your job as my partner is either to make my life work for me, or when I'm up against my own shit and I don't want to deal with it, well, then you also get to be my punching bag, my therapist,
Mm-hmm.
my security blanket, my mommy or my daddy.
We use people as instruments of our happiness. Like,
Right.
I'm going to use
Right.
you to do this. I'm going to use you to make this happen. I'm going to use you in this way for me.
Because you are my everything.
Right. Ugh.
Which sounds lovely in a song, but it's scary as hell when you really think about what that means. Just what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, in a way, in retrospect, I loved it at the time, but in the ensuing 20 or 25 years since Jerry Maguire came out, you had me at hello and you complete me. I want to fucking vomit.
Yeah.
That movie has done more disservice, between that and Hallmark,
Mm-hmm.
this whole idea that you're my everything.
Mm.
And when I run into couples who believe that or think that ought to be the way it is, what I say to them is no one, your love partner, your best friend, no one can be your own personal Walmart.
I just find that funny because I was just talking to a friend today about how there are certain things that Walmart's really good for, but not everything. and,
Right.
and now it's as if Walmart had everything.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think this also opens up the role that maturity ultimately, ideally plays. Because when Sarah and I got together, I was 24. And another thing that I see has helped us make it through some very difficult times was me ultimately, and maybe her to a degree, but I think when you've already been married, divorced, and been a single parent, you grow up pretty fast when you're in that kind of a situation. I hadn't had a kid before she and I had our son together, which was not planned. So I had to really, and I don't think I really started getting it until I was in my late 30s or early 40s. I'm the one that has to deal with my shit. I've got to do my healing. I've got to own. And that's another huge reason why a lot of marriages are so divisive is if you think your partner is going to be able to or even should handle your emotional dysregulation or handle your inner tug of war between I really want to be a hippie, but I really like my 7-figure income. Any of those internal cognitive dissonances that we all deal with at one point or another. Well, you're pointing in the wrong direction. And, when somebody taught me the thing around when you point your finger at someone, there's 3 of them pointing back at you. The first time I heard that, my first thought was, well, fuck you. No, it goes right over there. So I think that is a huge, every couple I work with, relatively soon into the work, that's one of the first things I have to either teach them that they've never known or I have to remind them. No matter how poorly behaved your spouse might be, you still are fully at choice around whether you're going to react to that or respond. And while you're not responsible for your partner's behavior, you are responsible for your impact and your dynamics that inadvertently or advertently create that impact. So you really have to look here first, always.
Right. I want to go back to my thread, if you don't mind.
I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry. I went.
No, not at all. No, all of this is relevant. I'm just. This is sort of like the teacher in me. Like, okay, so what we've been learning, boys and girls, is.
Thank you, Mister.
The next doctor to you.
Thank you, Dr. Kettleheart.
Well, because I'm learning this, and so it helps me to repeat it. What I'm hearing, what I'm learning. I don't mean to be pedantic.
No, you're not.
This is fun.
So the love's there, the chemicals are flowing. Then things start to get rocky. I've got to recognize I'm committed to this, and I got to deal with myself in order to make the right choices. This is the next piece of the thread I hear is we have to recognize we're a choice. We could choose, like, this isn't going to work out. We're not meant to be together forever is one of the options. I love you and I'm moving on, and I think you should too.
Yeah.
Or, okay, I got to choose how I'm going to get this because I'm dealing with cognitive dissonance and my wife isn't a therapist. So choose to get help or choose to be a choice at every moment. And I'm just going to anticipate that the next piece of the thread, or maybe where it all wraps around, is to the piece that Chief Joseph brought out. Like, if we have to be at peace within to deal with our own cognitive dissonance, let alone sustain it, sustain the commitment that goes back to the love. And so I think what I'm really impressed with the way you your TED talk at the beginning, and I'm trying to keep the thread tied to that is what I'm trying to do here. And I'm thinking that we have to have connection to inner peace if we're going to deal with our own cognitive dissonance, to make the right choices, to stay in the commitment to love.
I'm going to ask Geoff for you to respond to that, and then we need to wrap up for today.
Okay.
And I'm wondering also if after we stop the recording, we can look at our calendars, because Geoff, I'd love to keep this conversation going if you're available for that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, yes, that was a great recap, Marty. And you're on track around what comes next. And how do we get peace within ourselves?
Mm-hmm.
And, I remember one of my early mentors 35 years ago now gave me the perspective, both on a spiritual and a, human level. We tend to attract partners that are going to help us heal, whether that's by illuminating
Mm-hmm.
the dark shadow wounds that we haven't recognized or seen or owned or all of the above yet.
Mm-hmm.
And, when I look back on Sarah and I, thank God she was more mature than me for a long time, because I was so blind to where I felt broken inside.
Mm-hmm.
I was blind to the impact of the considerable traumas I went through growing up. And so to find inner peace, there's a blend of the essential need to take 100% responsibility for your experience of your life, good, bad, and ugly.
Mm-hmm.
There's no negotiation in that formula. I'm 100% responsible for how I experience myself and my life.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started to get that, and just to be transparent, that's still a work in progress.
Yeah.
I have to remind myself of that, at least a few times a day. That I have to also be able to know and own my shadow, face it, learn to appreciate it for the gifts that it has, and to not let it shit the bed in my life as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that, again, as I look at the arc of Sarah's and my relationship and the relationships I personally know of that, are comparable to ours, that's been a key thing. When you hit the wall and the conflict starts escalating and you're triggering each other right and left,
Mm-hmm.
if nothing else, that's, in my way of thinking, that's your spirit letting you know the next piece of wholeness for you is to go into these wounded, broken parts of ourselves. And that takes courage and patience, resilience, and about 5 gallons of tenacity a day.
Mm-hmm.
Listeners, he is Geoff Laughton. And he can be reached at jeff@theundauntedman.org. And his website is, help us out, Jeff, theundauntedman.com.
theundauntedman.com. And for the relationship work I do, yourrelationshiparchitect.com.
Thank you for joining us, and let's get you on the calendar again very soon.
Great. Thanks.
You. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Marty. Till next time. We appreciate who you are, that you would be listening to this podcast, and want to acknowledge all those parts of you that yearn for the experience of the true you.
If you like this episode, click like, share it with others, and be sure to subscribe. Listen again next week for the newest episode.
Check show notes for a transcript and a link to resources, including a link to let us know if you'd like to be a guest on our podcast.
Thank you for listening and going on this journey with us back to the true you.